Super Bowl.
Big as the what?
Or, as it's known in my circles, the game that they were playing during the Kendrick Lamar concert.
They did have a football game.
That was it. Yeah. Okay.
At the Kendrick Lamar concert.
So that's it. Okay.
I saw that.
Yeah. Okay.
I saw that.
Understood. Well, a lot of folks have their opinions on whether or not Kendrick Lamar put on a good show, whether it was worthy of the Super Bowl halftime. And I'm just going to get right into it. I don't normally leave comments in the comments section. I know better. But Kendrick is from Compton.
Kendrick is from Compton.
Yeah. And I'm from Compton, and I'm not made that way where I could just ignore somebody.
I've been trying to, but I can't.
Yeah, I gotta get in there, right? So,
and you know how I'm anti-comment section, like that's
super duper anti-comment section. So
that's not where I hang out. I don't roll over there.
Well,
but
you had to get a couple bars off.
Yeah, bro.
I'm like, hey, look, man, for those people that got something to say, if I see 3, 4, 5 of them in a row, I'm like, okay. And granted, and there's more people saying they loved it, but go ahead.
And I'm not trying to bang on those people. I'm here to teach.
Yes, they need to learn, right? So, like that, and in that spirit, there's a news station out where we live that put a comment out that said, what do you think of Kendrick Lamar's halftime performance? Rate your thoughts going from A+ to F, right? And so, we're at a polarized time in this country, so there were a lot of A+ and a lot of Fs, right? And I noticed a trend with the Fs. They looked a certain way. They had the same complaints, whatever, right? And you could, after a while, you could start to profile the people who were assigning the Fs, right? And like I said, too many Fs in a row. I'm like, wait a minute, Compton, stand up. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't. Now I got to say something because I can't let y'all outnumber. You know what I'm saying? Not that it was close, but anyway, I'll now share the comment that I left. A+. Folks can watch any of the breakdowns of the performance on social media and get exactly why so many people loved it. Kendrick makes high art. Sometimes you need a guide to high art. You need to know the background story, or the intended message, or the target audience, etc. It works the same if you're in a museum. Sometimes you can't appreciate the genius of an artist or a sculpture until you appreciate the purpose of the piece, or the risk involved, or where the artist was creatively at that time. There's a reason he's a Pulitzer Prize-winning artist who has 22 Grammys. The reason doesn't need to be lost on you. Also, I don't understand all the lyrics to Pearl Jam or Radiohead. So let's all be careful on that two-way street. Compton forever, keep winning . Now, for the people that were not able to get past, well, I don't understand, or it's too hip hop, or there were no explosions or fireworks or anything like that. I say to you, this is high art. There are Easter eggs in his performances. There are Easter eggs in his lyrics, in his raps, that you don't know about. Q and I once, we said something on this show. We said, there are people who are super lyrical, right? Eminem is a super lyrical person. You could argue Drake as the same, and J. Cole, and there's these great names, Jay-Z and so forth, right? Nas, of course. These greats that are super lyrical. But what Kendrick does is something different. He's playing a different game. There are levels to his music. Each song requires a breakdown, and that's not something you can say about any of those other names. They just kind of say what they feel. And Kendrick is saying something where no matter how many times you listen to the song, you're going to hear something different. Or he's saying something to where no matter how many different breakdowns you hear of the song, the next breakdown is holding another Easter egg that you hadn't even considered. A perfect example of this is and I hope I get this right, during that Super Bowl performance, there was someone who pointed out that when he came out on a PlayStation controller, that the X and the triangle and the circle and the square were lighting up in such a way that it replicated the cheat code for GTA 5 for infinite life or something like that. It's like increase your attributes, right? And when you take that in context of what it is Kendrick stood for, what it is he's trying to do for the purpose, what machine he's up against, and then the fact that many of us can identify with that, you start to understand and appreciate, oh, there's Easter eggs here that I could not have considered. And you were looking for an explosion. Now, I don't want to suck all the oxygen out of this conversation because I know that Q has plenty to share, and then we'll come back to me because I have some more to share from online sources.
Yeah, we could do this, like this conversation we could have for hours.
Oh yeah.
Because it means something different to us than it would the layman or the just common person who just so happened to be watching the Super Bowl or just so happens to be a fan of music. Being a specific fan of Kendrick Lamar brings with it a different set of eyes, a different set of ears, a third eye.
You have to know that you're not going to catch everything.
A different way of processing and an understanding, like you said, that you won't catch every Easter egg the first 25 times. Yeah. Right? I heard Kendrick talking to Drake on All the Stars last year. Mm-hmm. That song came out 7 years ago or something like that.
Yeah. When Black Panther came out.
Yeah, we're still learning from 7 years ago today. So you're not going to get everything that happened a few days ago right on time. There's two separate pieces of data that are being ignored or missed here. One of them is the most obvious one, which is confusing me the most, how people are. It's funny, while I was saying that, I realized that I'm not confused. I got unconfused while I was saying that.
What you got?
People are being intentionally obtuse.
Okay. Yeah.
In the same way they did with this new president. When he was running for president, people would pretend to not see things and pretend to not know things, or not even pretend not to know them, but just take the opposite position fervently while ignoring obvious things. And we would be like, how are they? Oh, never mind. They're sycophants. Right? There are some people who watched this just so they could say it was whack. So of course,
in their opinion, it's going to be whack.
They pre-colored it that way. Yeah. And the reason why I know that is that there are people who I know to be intelligent. I didn't just start interacting with them on Sunday, making very unintelligent observations. Like, hey, how come he's doing these songs people don't know yet versus the hits? And that's so obvious to us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it should be. GNX just came out. Artists see a nearly 400% spike in sales of the music they perform at the Super Bowl after the Super Bowl. Why would he not perform the music from the album that he just put out?
Can I add something else here?
Please.
Okay. Now, that may be true, and I suspect that it is, but also Kendrick Lamar is the same person where when they were battling, Drake and Kendrick, there's no way. I am 100% biased. If you're from Compton, California, you have my support. That's just how I'm made. Don't ever put me on a judging panel, okay?
That's not unique to Compton.
But
you ride for our people, no matter where they're from. I know that as fact.
Go ahead, say that. But in the context of Drake and Kendrick, that was what it was. But I'll say I am a fan of Drake. Drake has contributed what he has contributed to the culture, for better or worse.
Do you know how many clubs we've turned upside down
because of Drake?
With Drake,
yeah.
We're not pretending here.
Yeah, and I my heart goes out to him because I know he's got to be feeling this over and over and over again, you know. But when they were battling back and forth, the thing that let me know not only that my allegiance was where it was supposed to be because I'm made that way, but my allegiance was where it was supposed to be because it's the right place for it to be, was when Drake said to Kendrick, You're always rapping like you're trying to set the slaves free, right? Now, that was a horrible thing to say. That's an awful thing to say. It's just the ugh. What are you rapping for, Drake? So you can get some money and some girls?
Yes,
that's
actually.
corny. That's super.
You were posing that as a question.
Well,
that's absolutely why he's rapping.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you that. But
we watched a video where he married 1,700 women.
Look, man, that's cool. But like, if that's a byproduct of what it is you're living your life for, like around here, you and me, Q, we stand on man business, right? Now, what comes with being a man? Yeah, maybe it's some success, maybe it's some whatever, but man business is man business.
Yeah, we've also turned down some of the spoils,
sure,
because they didn't align with our purpose,
our values, exactly, right? So that's man business, right? And Drake, I felt like, he had never been pressed in that way, and not that I held it over his head or anything like that. Most people aren't, and they're just on their journey. But when you intentionally attack someone who stands on man business, who stands on, in Kendrick's case, let me say something different. Community business, black business, Compton business, LA business, like his people's business, right? And then you belittle that by saying you're always rapping like you're trying to set the slaves free. Oh, that is a fatal mistake, right? Now, bear that in mind. Where Drake was going with that was to try to point out something that's very true about Kendrick. Kendrick's music is very political. Many of his songs play like Negro spirituals. They uplift us. I love myself. If God got us, we gonna be all right. Like, and it's in the same spirit of Tupac. So when Kendrick channels Tupac, it's valid because Tupac wrote Keep Your Head Up. You know what I'm saying? Tupac wrote Dear Mama. Tupac wrote Brenda's Got a Baby. And Drake don't have nothing that can compare with that. And this is why Kendrick is in those types of conversations where Drake isn't. You can talk about how many albums Drake sold. And like Kendrick said, I make music that electrify him, you make music that pacify him, right? Now, with all that bearing all that in mind, when Kendrick steps out to perform at the Super Bowl, it stands to reason that Kendrick may not necessarily exclusively be doing these particular songs so that he can get money off of them, although that could be a byproduct. It could be the case that this playlist was curated specifically to get a message off. Indeed, the performance, everything that he's saying. Well, and with someone like him, I wouldn't put that past him. Now,
it's not that could be the case. That's absolutely the case.
There it is.
I'm just saying, and
there's a bump in streams too.
I'll continue.
Yeah, go ahead.
Where I was going.
Yeah.
There is a commercial element to this.
Absolutely, and
to pretend that it's not would be me being obtuse and intellectually dishonest, and I refuse to. The message part is obvious. It's Kendrick. The culture part is never going away. He never turns that button off for the capital part, but the capital part exists. Most artists that perform at the Super Bowl halftime show are legacy artists performing their hits.
Their
That's what they have.
Yeah.
Kendrick is in his prime with the #1 album that just came out. So for people to, I bring this up intentionally. People were confused how songs like Peekaboo were performed. It's a smash from his brand new album. Like, of course,
go get it. Yeah,
he's making room for that new music as well.
Yeah,
and the messaging again would have to be intentionally missed as well. You had to be watching with the critical eye to pick him apart and not understand. If we watched that to pick out all the stuff we didn't like and find all the flaws and all the mistakes and point to all the reasons how it could have been better, of course we could.
We could find it.
But that's like people picking at LeBron James. Like, yeah, you can watch his game and you can talk about how, Michael Jordan was 6 for 6 and he never lost. Except to make that statement and it be true, you have to pretend that Michael Jordan only played for 6 seasons. You have to ignore all the times he didn't even get to the championship.
Yeah.
And then you have to be intellectually dishonest and make it a better accomplishment to not make it to the championship than to make it there and not win it. But there are people who are committed to that. There are people who have made careers off of doing that.
Yeah.
Watching LeBron James play basketball, a man who does everything in basketball well and has at the highest level for longer than anyone ever has.
Yeah.
There are people who have made millions of dollars turning on a microphone and the camera and telling us how good he isn't.
Yeah.
And that's sad, right? Especially because you and I talk about our lack of monolithic solidarity because we say it like it's a flex. There's this other thing that we started to say like it's a flex that's ridiculous. I'm not my ancestors. That's not a flex. Are you trying to position yourself as better, as stronger, as able to endure more, as more intelligent? As like, what are you saying when you say that? Because I hear you saying it as a flex. You couldn't possibly understand the gravity of the statement that you're making.
Yeah.
They died so you can do what you want now. They died so you could have the privilege to not participate in elections that they died to be able to cast a vote in. Of course you're not our ancestors. Some of you couldn't be. Some of you couldn't have possibly survived what they went through.
Go ahead.
So someone who's channeling all of them every time he puts his pen to paper is really above your criticism.
There it is. That's it. You are not qualified to criticize Kendrick Lamar. Now, if you say, hey, it's not for me, then say, hey, it's not for me. Okay? But say that in your private circles. Don't go into the chat room and give this man an F because you didn't get it. Right? You have to bear in mind, there's you don't get to that level by accident. How about this? Let me add something else here. Something that I learned, and I picked this up from another one of the people that was pointing out all the different Easter eggs, right? And then I think to your point, Q, about him, playing some album cuts off of his new album, there's a song called Man in the Garden, right? And I didn't think to break that down any further. I just didn't think to break it down any further. Man in the Garden, I'm thinking Madison Square, whatever came to mind. He performs a little bit of that song, sitting on the steps at the Super Bowl, surrounded by his dancers, but only the ones wearing white. And then as this person who was sharing Easter eggs on their social media says, this is more reminiscent of like a cemetery or a funeral. And he's like, and when you think Man in the Garden, then it comes full circle. And I was like, man, I didn't even get that. And he's like, yeah, well, when you see only the dancers in the white are there, and how he used the red, the white, and the blue, the red and the blue specifically from where he comes from, and the white to show where everyone ends up. Like, it was a breakdown where I was like, man, the artistry here, to listen to someone say there were no fireworks is like, okay, listen, you need to be pacified.
There were no spinning rims is what that's the equivalent of saying that. And this is the part that makes that even deeper. What you just explained might not have even been his point,
but the fact that you think about
it could be. And that's the point.
And can I go somewhere with this?
Please.
So watch this. Ghostface Killah, of all people, Ghostface Killah. For anybody that listens to Wu-Tang, anybody that knows Ghost, he says some stuff, and sometimes it be sounding wild. It sound good, but it be sounding wild. You know what I'm saying? Like, he just, the wallabies and the olive trees and that's Ghost, right? And he's had some criticisms throughout his career, as all artists do. But he said something that stayed with me long before Kendrick was even on the radar. But someone had taken an issue with him, and I maybe an interviewer had brought it to his attention. Like, hey, man, so what do you say to people that say, hey, they don't really follow your lyrics, they don't really understand what it is you're trying to say, all the time? Well, Ghostface said, well, listen, art is supposed to make you feel something. I'm paraphrasing. This was years ago, and Ghost don't talk like this. You can go back and try to find the interview yourself. I'm not trying to misquote Ghostface Killah. He's always been very kind to me. So, but he was saying, art is supposed to make you feel something. Okay? When you go into a museum and you see a painting or whatever, you might not know what the painting is, It can be an abstract sort of painting, but the point is for it to make you feel something. And if you see the painting and you feel something, mission accomplished. If you see the painting and you don't feel something, move on to the next piece. But I make art. So this is effectually what he was communicating. And that stayed with me because I am a child of hip hop. My older brother is hip hop royalty. So I got all of this honestly. My whole career is hip hop, right? So that was something that I needed to take with me because a lot of hip hop songs, you know, I'm like, okay, does that grammatically make sense? No. Does that make, what is he saying? Does that go with the theme of the song? No, not necessarily. But did I feel something? And that was where I was able to make the determination once upon a time that Tupac was the best rapper to ever live, the greatest of all time. Because when Tupac makes a song, he puts feeling into it and he makes sure that you feel something on the other side of it. And that might not be something that's true with other lyrical rappers who you're just wowed by the fact that they are talented. No, where's the feeling? What am I taking? What feeling have I taken from this?
The thing that disappoints me the most at the discourse behind this, because I don't mind people not loving it, I just wish that it didn't have to be so extreme. People aren't saying, oh, that was cool, it just wasn't for me. They're like, it was trash, it was whack. And I'm like, how did everybody miss the obvious? People are saying now in response to this performance, the same thing they were saying in between Drake setting it off and Kendrick responding.
It's the same.
They're saying the same thing. He don't got no bops and he make the slave free music and like all the things that they said, they learned nothing from what just happened. Like he taught a lesson, put belt to and then went back to Kendrick. Yeah. And he showed up authentically as Kendrick to give a message to the newly inaugurated president who was in attendance, to the very league that hired him, who removed in racism. Like people ignoring all of this context and not processing what Kendrick did are missing the point on such a grand level that when you point it out, they're like, you're a stan, and how come you can't be critical? And I'm like, how come you can't open your eyes and see the very obvious truths? He showed up for us. And how is the us that he showed up for disappointed and not proud and not hailing him up as the great artist and creator that he is? He showed up in front of the entire world. More people watched his halftime performance than Michael Jackson's. The most viewed halftime in the history of the Super Bowl was Kendrick Lamar. The halftime performance, probably for the first time ever, got more viewers than the game. There was a 5 or 6% drop off when he stopped performing. Average peak for Kendrick was, I think, 133.5 million viewers. Average peak for the game was like 126 million. A significant noticed present drop off because people showed up to watch that man perform. And what he did in his performance was show up for us authentically when he had the hits to just party.
Oh yeah, he's got them.
He could have come and just partied with
ASAP Rocky,
but that's not what he was there for.
Not at all.
Right? And after he gave us the message and he walked us through the story, like all the comments that you guys are making, Uncle Sam made those points for you while he was performing.
Oh yeah.
And he responded in full artistic context, live in front of the world to every criticism before you even had a chance to give them. And you still brought those same lazy critiques to social media within minutes of him finishing.
Did you even watch it?
Did you even pay attention at all? Not just to the performance, but to this whole year. He spent the year showing you there's nothing you think I can do that I can't. As a matter of fact, the thing you think he's better at than me, watch me make a smash and hit him over the head with it. Headshot for a year, you better walk around like Daft Punk. Remember?
Dang. Listen, I know a gentleman. His name is Steven. Steven is a billionaire with a B. He lives not far from my house, and he's a friend of mine. Steven's house is enormous. It would take 2 magazines to encompass the grandeur of his home. You could have a magazine dedicated to just his pool, or just the wing where he hangs one type of art from one type of part of the world. It's enormous. I've been to Stephen's house, bulletproof windows, like name it, it's all there. Never seen anything like it. I don't know that I will. I took another billionaire into his house, and he said, I've been in palaces that weren't as nice as this one. Okay? The guy that owns like Zigzag and whatever. He's on the cover of Forbes. You can check him out. Promise. Anyway. Stephen Cooper's house is expertly curated. It is expressive. It is, for what it is executed at a level so masterful that it blows the mind. As I mentioned, I took someone else into Stephen's house who was his neighbor. They just had never met. And he was so wowed by it. He's like, I've been in palaces that aren't as nice as this house on this golf course here. Stephen's house is not my taste. I'm not into like Victorian paintings. I'm not into busts of people with the powdered wigs. I'm not into, stained glass fixtures from some church in the 1400s. That's just not my thing, right? But I do recognize the artistry and the curation of an experience, because I got that 100% walking into his house. Now, this is how the commenters sound. If I walk into Stephen Cooper's house and he gives me the full tour, and I got to spend 30 minutes just trying to appreciate the pool and the gazebo, because they had to import the stone, and the pool is the deepest one in the whole state, and you could dive and scuba dive down. Just that, right? Imagine if I left this house, because it's not my taste. And I was like, man, that house was trash. How goofy would I sound? That's how you sound when you critique a Kendrick Lamar performance.
There are intended feelings, right? You spoke about art making you feel.
Mm-hmm.
How it makes you feel won't always be good.
Sure.
But there are intended feels. If you are us after that performance, if you were paying attention to see it and not watching to find every flaw so that you could be the first person on the internet to have the opposite opinion of everybody else, because contrarianism is somehow an intellectual flex now, you would have felt moved after.
Yeah.
Those who felt offended by it, actually, like who got it and felt offended, who got the messaging and it bothered them.
It was supposed to.
It was supposed to.
Oh, yeah.
If you're us and you felt that way, you either weren't paying attention,
or you're the problem,
or made up your mind before he even started that he was whack. You couldn't have understood it and been us and not been moved in a positive way. Those of us that are being critical are just like, okay, everybody glazing Kendrick now, so let me show them that I'm not one of the sheep. It's the same thing we just dealt with in the election.
Yeah.
Right? No one like us should have supported the other guy. Those that did were either misinformed or have decided in their mind that I'm going to show everyone how much of a sheep that I'm not. Take the contrarian position and just ride it out because I'm more woke and I'm more intellectual and I'm more aware and more informed than everyone else. Everybody else is wrong and I'm right. It's an arrogant, smug, condescending, intentionally contrarian position to take with no end.
Yeah, toward no end. Yeah.
Toward no end.
Yeah.
Right? I want to read this because I don't want us to spend 3 days on this topic because I know that we could. Kendrick started the show with an unreleased song that's a snippet right before GNX dropped that everyone has been waiting for him to release as a full song. Now, I don't think he gave us a full song, but he did give us more lyrics. And if you can hear these lyrics and think he's mid, As the famous philosopher Sean Carter once said, if you can't respect that, your whole perspective is whack. Only thing matter right now is living right now, and I can't spare no feelings. Quiet on set, but my aura loud. I navigate through hood and wisdom. The money all here, young man, F holding your hand, you'll die broke trying to play victim. The little ideas I told made people go rogue until God did me a big one. That was in the snippet. The verse. Reincarnated with love. My Gemini twin back powering up. No more handshakes and hugs. The energy only circulate through us. Everybody must be judged. But this time, God only favoring us. 20 years in, still got that pen dedicated to bare hard truth. The etiquette speak with a vigilant tongue. The predicate this time is F you. I'm carrying heavier hearts right now. I can power lift with Olympians too. Two as in also. I'm carrying various darts right now. I desert this like tiramisu. See, we go body for body. I hand you a body. I'm probably a better masseuse. I really don't bother nobody, but they run it by me if I got to clear out the room. You would not get the picture if I had to sit you for hours in front of the Louvre. Listen to this, bro. You would not have a soul even if I had told you to stand next to Johnny and Q. Absolutely. Started with nothing but government cheese, but now I can seize the government too. Remember, the food stamp color was tan and brown, but now the 100 is blue. Remember, I said I'm the greatest back when you debated the number 1 and number 2. Topic was always hilarious to me. You carry him to me, I brung out the, and then he screams, Christ. Like, if that is whack to you,
then you're whack.
Then you and I can't even have this conversation.
Yeah.
And that's my take on Kendrick Lamar.
I'm gonna leave you with this last little bit that I came across on the internet. This is from my guy Bruce St. James. Okay, Bruce St. James is white as a ghost, but he gets it. Okay, Bruce St. James is older than us, but he gets it. Okay, 10 things, but I'm only gonna give you about 6. 10 things about Kendrick Lamar. 1, he does not drink or do drugs. I confirmed that during, I think, our first interview, because that's the same with me. I've never drank, I've never done drugs. Nor is Q. We say that as often as we can, because it's important for people to know that that is a viable path. He does not drink or do drugs. 2, he's won 22 Grammys, an Emmy, an American Music, Brit, and Pulitzer Prize Awards. 3, he was a straight A student in high school and would have gone to college for astronomy or psychology, but started a rap career instead. Number 5, he's still with his high school sweetheart. Number 6, he is heavily involved in philanthropy. And we'll end it on number 7, but you can keep going. He is a brilliant songwriter. And I think that that's where we want to stop it, because I think that that, above all else, helps make your point that he is a brilliant songwriter. So if you got anything else to add to it, do it in the comments. I'm at Ramses Ja.
I am Q Ward on all social media.
And until we talk to you,
peace.